biggest thing for me in terms of this defensive tackle group is, can they survive an injury? Can they survive, Linval Joseph missing a few games, or Jerry Tillery missing a few games, or Justin Jones missing a few games? Because like we said on our live stream yesterday, last year they had Damian Square, who was a very reliable player. This year, I don't know if they have that kind of player on the roster. I don't know if I trust Braden Fajoko's development if he's thrust into a starting role, or Cortez Brown, or whoever they choose. So the biggest question mark to me is specifically what happens if Linval Joseph goes down, because he was the most productive player of the trio. I know he didn't have any sacks, but he was a bright spot in terms of pass rusher. He was, looking like his old self in terms of a run stopper. And he looks like he's in great shape right now, but he is over 30. You never know if those kind of players are going to get injured. So my biggest question mark is what happens to this group if Linval Joseph goes down?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question to have based on, last season where you saw defensive linemen, be it edges or tackles, start to drop, and then you saw that production come down. I think the biggest name who would probably have to step up in that position is Justin Jones, if that were to happen. And the run defense was notably worse when he was off the field as well, in addition to whenever Joseph didn't play a snap. So to me, that would be the most natural fit if that were to happen. But I mean, you would also have to have everybody step up. And to me, the guy who, we'll get into this later, but the guy who disappeared when guys dropped was Jerry Tillery. So to me, that's the thing to watch is, the conditions aren't always going to be optimal. Joey Bosa may have to miss a game. Uchenna Nwosu may have to miss a game somewhere along the line. And so to me, if you have Jerry Tillery with a fully healthy defensive line, then I think he's great. But if you don't, then I don't really know if he can, kind of carry a line by himself. Maybe that's an unfair expectation, but, they did spend a first-round pick on him. And so to me, they are looking for a bit more of that dynamic pass rusher that we saw in week 1 and week 2 of last year, and less, what we saw the rest of the season. So I would say that those two guys, if Linval Joseph does get hurt, or even if he just shown some decline due to aging, those are the two guys that got to step up.
Yeah, this is pretty much in line with the question that I had for the defensive tackle, defensive line group. Even last year with the Rams, they had Sebastian Joseph Day. It was a name that no one really recognizes, but he commanded a lot of double teams, or he at least took on 2 guys. And even just in 211 run defense snaps, he had 42 solo tackles and 33 run stops. And so this is, and for Joseph to do that, that's great. I do totally believe that he can do that. But like you said, as soon as he goes down, what is this team going to do? And I try not to go, like, on the one hand, I'm like, well, if he goes down, then this happens. I tried not to go too far down that list, because at some point, if they're just out of talent, they're just out of talent. But, they've really committed, and this is kind of my question too, as well, adding to your question, is their move towards a more, like Linval Joseph has lost weight. So is that weight loss, the focus on speed and gap penetration, getting after the quarterback, is that a good move long-term for this team? And I guess long-term, I mean like for an entire season. Of course, like as Arjun has said, the whole goal of this defense and the Staley defense, as I guess as it should be in the NFL, is to get after the passer. And I totally get that. But, what happens when the injuries behind these players start to happen? There's not other than Nasir Adderley, there's not a single safety or edge player or linebacker on this team who started last season who either didn't suffer a season-ending injury, or had some sort of injury, or had some sort of off-season shoulder surgery. Everyone was hurt. So what happens after that? And if you're relying on those guys to stop the run, and that's completely fine, you have the talent from all 11 starters to do that. But as those guys start to go, and let's say Joseph starts to decline, what is your plan up front to free up Nick Neiman and Alohi Gilman at strong safety? Like, what is your plan at that point? And so, the depth certainly concerns me. Is it Fehoko? Perhaps. I'd be glad if it was. But, right now it's really thin. And there's a reason that a lot of us were trying to take either Shelvin or McGill, I believe. No, who is it? Who's the other defensive?
McNeil.
Was it McGill? McNeil. Thank you. Ali McNeil. Yeah. So there's a reason we're all trying to take one of those guys, sometime day 3 instead of like a Trey McKitty or even a Josh Palmer, because As soon as Joseph goes down, I start to worry. And then as soon as those back end players behind them start to go down, do they have the talent up front to free him up? I don't think so at all.